So it's not quite 10 o'clock. So our custom is to contemplate the four dharmas of Gampopa, waiting for everyone to arrive who is going to come, but really setting our view that listening to the Dharma has the effect of transforming our mind. And as we contemplate and meditate, the confused states dissolve, just like the sun rising doesn't in any way do something to the darkness. It doesn't attack it or change it. The darkness simply dissolves as the sun rises, just so our wisdom arises. I'm just checking the sound. There we go. All sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness. May they have happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the most perfect and precious Buddhahood. All sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness. May they have happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the most perfect and precious Buddhahood. All sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness. May they have happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the most perfect and precious Buddhahood. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. As earth and the other elements, together with space, eternally provide sustenance in many ways for the countless sentient beings, so may I become sustenance in every way for sentient beings, to the limits of space until all have attained nirvana. As the Sugatas of old gave birth to the bodhicitta and progressively established themselves in the training of a bodhisattva, so I too, for the benefit of beings, shall give birth to that bodhicitta and progressively train myself in that discipline. At this moment, my life has become fruitful. I have realized my human life. Today I am born into the family of the Buddhas. Now I am a child of the Buddhas. From now on, I will forthrightly perform the actions befitting my family. I will act so as not to degrade the faultlessness and discipline of my family. Just as with a blind man finding a jewel in a heap of dust, thus somehow bodhicitta has been born in me. This is the supreme Amrita which destroys death, the inexhaustible treasure which removes the world's poverty. It is the supreme medicine which cures the world's sickness, the tree which provides rest for beings weary of wandering on the paths of existence. It is the universal bridge on which all travelers may pass over the lower realms, the rising moon of mind which dispels the torment of the kleshas. It is the great sun which puts an end to the obscurity of ignorance, the pure butter which comes of churning the milk of the holy Dharma. For travelers wandering the paths of existence, seeking happiness from objects of enjoyment, it is supreme bliss near at hand, the great feast which satisfies sentient beings. Today, witnessed by all the protectors, I have welcomed the sentient beings and Sugatas. Devas and Asuras rejoice. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. So, welcome. I'm glad to be back with you. We are studying Lojong, or the 7 points of mind training. And we are working with slogan 21 and 22. I'm going to put them in the chat room, the chat box. And I tell you, every time we gather, I think, this is the most profound slogan. This is the most important slogan. And it just always is a contemplation of appreciation of the depth of this mind training. So Pema Chodron suggests that we look at these two slogans together, that they're paired. Always maintain only a joyful mind. If you can practice, even when distracted, you are well trained. So this is quite the instruction. Only practice a joyful mind. Only maintain a joyful mind. If you can practice even with the challenges that arises in daily life, then you are well trained. So really, this is about how we respond to what is arising in our circumstances moment by moment. And it can be the outside experiences, or it can be the inner experiences, the thoughts. And when we look at only maintain a joyful mind, it's because no matter what is arising, moment by moment, if we see the key Dharma instruction on how to awaken in this very moment, then we have a joyful mind, because whatever we're experiencing is assisting us on the path, not only assisting us on the path, but pointing out to us that this is the path, that we in this moment have a choice of going towards our Buddha nature in this circumstance, or going to emotional states and even what we describe as the poisonous states, or the states that engender habits of confusion. So it's about pausing, seeing the choice, and choosing the perspective that brings us closer to our Buddha nature. So I'm now going to put in the chat room one of my favorite series of instructions. It's really designed for crisis and illness. But it is such an example of these instructions specifically. All right, didn't take. I'm going to try again. And for those folks who can't see the chat, I will be reading it. No, not going to work. So I'm going to share the screen. This is an extraordinary teaching, and it's how to have Tonglen in the forefront of your mind, no matter what the experience is. And so many of us have worked with serious illness, understand the impermanence of life, have seen in our families these conditions. And when we get that diagnosis, when we see that our body is aging and failing, as we come closer to death, if we keep these instructions in mind, always maintain only a joyful mind, and if you can practice when you're distracted, then we can move through all of these difficulties. If I'm supposed to be sick, let me get sick and I'll be happy. May this sickness purify my negative karma and the sickness of all sentient beings. So to make this even more accessible, I see that illness is occurring in my body as I meet each doctor, as I go to each hospital. May I be happy, and may I, in the sense of Tonglen, use this illness to purify the illness of all sentient beings. So breathing in the suffering when we're sitting in the doctor's office or in the hospital isn't increasing our own suffering or increasing our own illness. It's allowing our mind to be wide open and to meet illness fearlessly and allow the transformation of our mind to see illness as a path of awakening, as a mental condition that affects our environment, in this case the hospital, the doctors, our families, and reverberates out. So what can happen when we get sick? Maybe the sickness will leave. If I'm supposed to be healed, let all my sickness and confusion be healed and I'll be happy. May all sentient beings be healed and filled with happiness. So one of the important words here is confusion. So when we're talking about healing, sometimes it's physical and sometimes it's mental. And the more important healing is our mind. If our mind is clear and undistracted while we are ill, while we're receiving treatment, it's simply clear and undistracted, the same way it would be clear and undistracted if we had, a 25-year-old body. So it's not about necessarily the illness alone, it's about our mental states. And if we are growing in the Dharma as we're working through this, I'll be happy. And may all sentient beings find the path to awakening when they're struck with illness. If I'm supposed to die, let me die and I'll be happy. May all the delusion and causes of suffering of beings die. This stanza works with our resistance and struggle with outer circumstances. I don't want to die. I don't want this illness. I'm trying to push it away. Yet the illness is here. Yet the moment of death for us is here. I'll be happy. I will maintain a joyful mind to the best of my capacity as I move through this extraordinary transition, which we know is artificial, in the same way any boundary is artificial. It's a change, just like the change when we go to sleep. This physical body dies, there's the bardo, there's the next life. May we maintain an undistracted mind filled with the joy of the Dharma as we move through this transition, and thereby create even more clearly the circumstances to be born into the next life filled with Dharma. If I'm supposed to live a long life, let me live a long life and I'll be happy. May my life be meaningful in service to sentient beings. And actually, these two stanzas are connected. How many of the great beings have used their death as a service to sentient beings? I'm reminded of some of the great practitioners I've known, not famous, just leaders in the Sangha, not the enthroned people, who used their deaths as a way to teach fellow Sangha members, as a way to teach joy as part of the death process, fearlessness, and accepting impermanence and change. This is not in any way about not doing everything you can to prolong your life. It is about seeing what is and not resisting foolishly what is. Doing everything sensible while maintaining an undistracted mind in the Dharma with joy. So I always want to be cautious when we're talking about these things. It's not like we're there all the way yet. It's a practice. We can say, okay, illness has occurred. You know, I'm closer to death than I was. I see death approaching. How can I live in a way that is closer to my Buddha nature through all of this? How can I use this as a path of awakening? I may not immediately see the way to do that, but if I sit with it and work with it, I can let go of attachments. I can let go of the struggle. I can begin to appreciate the moment-to-moment life that I have, whether healed or closer to death. I can appreciate the preciousness of each and every moment and use it to come closer to my Buddha nature. So the particular caveat that I have is if we in some way think this is about accepting all difficult circumstances in a martyr-like quality. So let's say if we look at how do I use this circumstance to come closer to my Buddha nature, that may be about changing. That may be about setting boundaries. That may be about cultivating fearlessness for the sake of all sentient beings who are in my same situation. It may be about making extraordinary changes that seem almost impossible so that your mind can have the space to be in the Dharma and come closer to your Buddha nature. There's a sutra I want to say it's the Thorny Bush Sutra, um, Bramble Sutra, something about, being caught in so much pain um, in the circumstances that you're in that you feel like you can't move in any direction. And the Buddha said that even if you have a nice, safe place, even if the food is good, even if you have um, circumstances that from the outside seem all right, enough wealth, for instance, if your mind can't find an undistracted place because it is too difficult, then leave that very day. So, in particular, it was written for monastics, in semi retreat or retreat. Some donor may give you, a house overlooking the ocean, food, wealth, but may be attacking you um, and abusive in terms of, however you're treated. In that case, if there is, or it may be that the whole village is in conflict and the conflict is affecting your mind. In those cases, leave those circumstances to really consider, how do I benefit beings? I can't change samsara from samsara. But the most wonderful thing I can do for sentient beings is having a clear, undistracted, joyful mind so I can see what each and every being needs in order for them to grow closer to their Buddha nature. Okay, so my thought for this morning is to encourage you to take one of the stanzas from this prayer of using wisdom and courage and to contemplate, what difficulty are you actively working with and how might you express it so that you see how it can be a practice path for you. So I'm going to put this back on the screen using wisdom and courage, and let's sit with that and contemplate it for about 10 minutes. So again, this is analytical meditation. The object of contemplation is one of the stanzas, and you bring your attention back again and again to that stanza to really investigate the Dharma teaching of that stanza. So that will be the beginning. And then we will take some time to write and some time to discuss. But don't start writing now. First, contemplate. Now I invite you to compose a stanza relative to the particular challenge or difficulty or obstacle or struggle. Any one of them. I'm sure we all have lots of them. You might start with a very simple one, or you might start with a core issue. How would you connect it to the Dharma teaching that it would reveal and allow you to approach not struggling, not resisting, but growing closer to your Buddha nature in a way that benefits beings? So let's take about 5 minutes for this. There's no right or wrong. This is just for you. Keep pausing, look at what you've written, see if it's really targeting the core of the issue you've chosen, and see if it connects you with a more joyful perspective. And if not, keep going. It's like a poem. Rewrite, rewrite. So as we move in discussion, I'm going to do a quick dedication for the Facebook Live, and then we'll make it a private conversation. Bodhicitta, excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn may it arise, where it is born may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher.